Side 4, Isle of the Dead, continuing on page 164. I thought so when I said it, but this thing with Kathy now makes it necessary that I try to buy it. I do not understand. Don't try. Maybe the two of you had better wait here in case he starts shooting. If he kills you, what are we to do? Asked Green. That'll be your problem, then. See you in a little while, Nick. Check, Frank. I moved on down the trail, maintaining my mental shield. I used the rocks for cover, crawling among them as I neared. Finally, I lay flat on my stomach about 150 feet above the place. Two huge boulders shielded me and cast heavy shadows. I rested the pistol on my forearm and covered the back door. "Mike," I called out. "This is Frank Sandow." And I waited. Perhaps half a minute passed while he decided. Then, "Yes?" "I want to talk." "Go ahead." Suddenly the lights went out below me. "Is it true what I've heard about you and Kathy?" He hesitated, then, "I guess so." "Is she with you now?" "Maybe. Why?" "I want to hear her say it." Then, after everything, her voice. "I guess it's true, Frank. We didn't know where we were or anything, and I remember that fire. I didn't know how to—" I bit my lip. "Don't apologize," I said. "That was a long time ago. I'll live." Mike chuckled. "You seem confident of that." "I am. I've decided to do it the easy way." "What do you mean?" "How much do you want?" "Money?" "How much do you want?" "Money? You scared of me, Frank?" "I came here to kill you, but I won't do it if Kathy loves you. She says she does. Okay. If you've got to go on living, then I want you off my back. How much will it take for you to pick up your marbles and go away?" "What are marbles?" "Forget it. How much?" "I hadn't thought you would offer, so I never thought about it. A lot, though. I'd want a guaranteed income for life, a large one. Then some really large purchases in my name. I'd have to make a list." "You really do mean it? This isn't a trick?" "We're both telepaths. I propose we drop our screens. In fact, I'd insist on it as a condition." "Kathy has been asking me not to kill you," he said, "and she would probably hold it against me if I did." "Okay, she means more to me. I'll take your money and your wife and go away." "Thanks a lot." He laughed. "My luck is finally good. How do you want to handle this?" "If you'd like, I can give you a lump sum and then have my attorney set up a trust." "I want everything to be legal. I want $1 million plus $100,000 a year." "That's a lot." "Not to you. Just commenting." "Okay, I agree." I wondered how Kathy was taking all this. She could not have changed so much in a few months, but that this would not sound a bit sickening to her. "Two things," I added. "The pay-in, Grin Tharl, he's mine now. We have a score to settle." "You can have him. Who needs him? What's the other thing?" "Nick, the dwarf, comes away with me in one piece." "That little—" Then he laughed. "Sure. In fact, I kind of like him." "That's all?" "That's all." The sun's first rays tickled the belly of the sky, and the volcanoes flamed like Titan torches out over the water. "Now what?" "Wait till I pass a message to the others," I said. Green, he'll deal. I have his Paibhadra. Tell Nick. We depart in a few hours. My ship will come for me later today." "I hear you, Frank. We will be with you shortly." Now only the pay-in remained to be dealt with. It was almost too easy. I was still on the lookout for a trick. It would have to be an awfully elaborate one, though. I was inclined to doubt the possibility of collusion between Green and Mike. Anyhow, I would know in a few moments when Mike and I dropped our screens. But after all my preparations to settle the whole thing like a couple of businessmen, I could not tell whether I had chuckled or snorted. It was something that felt somewhere in between. Then I felt that it was wrong. It? Something. I do not know what. It was a feeling that probably goes back to the caves of the trees, hell, maybe even the oceans. Flopsis shone through the ash and the smoke and the mist, and she was the color of blood. A quietness seemed to settle over everything as the breezes grew still. Then that old gut-grabbing fear was back with me again, and I fought it. A big hand was about to come down out of the sky and squash me, but I lay still. I had conquered the Isle of the Dead, and Tokyo Bay burnt all about me. Now, though, I look down the slope into the Valley of Shadow. It is so easy for me to find things to be morbid about, and all things came to remind me of this. I shuddered and stilled my shaking. It would not do for Shandon to find fear in my heart. Finally, after I could wait no longer, "Shandon," I said, "I'm dropping my shield. You do the same." "All right." And our minds met, moved about inside one another. "You mean it?" "So do you." "Then it's a bargain?" "Yes." And the "no" that slammed back from the subterranean recesses of the world and echoed down from the towers of the sky clashed like cymbals within our minds. A flash of red heat passed through my body. Then, slowly, I stood, and my limbs were as firm as the mountains. Through lines of red and green I saw everything as clearly as by daylight. I saw where, down below me, Mike Shandon emerged from the chalet and slowly turned his head to rake the heights. Finally our eyes met, and I knew that what had been spoken or written in that place where I had stood with a thunderbolt in my hands had been true. Then there must be a confrontation. Flames. So be it. Darkness. There had been a patterning of events from the time I had departed home free up until this moment, which overrode, defeated the agreements of men. Ours had been a series of subsidiary conflicts, their resolution unimportant to those who controlled us now. Controlled. Yes. I had always assumed Shimbo to be an artificial creation, conditioned into me by the Payans, an alternate personality I assumed when designing worlds. There had never been a clash of wills, either. He had come only when summoned, delivered, and departed. He had never taken over spontaneously, forced any sort of control upon me. Perhaps deep down inside I wanted him to be a god, because I wanted there to be a gods, somewhere, and perhaps this desire was the animating force, and my paranormal powers the means for what was happening. I don't know. Once there was a burst of light when he came, so bright that I cried, not knowing why. Hell, that's no answer. I just don't know. So we stood there regarding one another, two enemies who had been manipulated by two older enemies. I imagined Mike's surprise at this turn of events. I tried to contact him, but my faculty was completely blocked. I imagined that he was remembering that strange, earlier confrontation himself, however. Then I saw that the clouds were massing overhead, and I knew what that meant. The ground beneath my feet gave a gentle shudder, and I knew what that meant, too. One of us was going to die, though neither of us wished this. "Shimbo, Shimbo," I said within me, "Lord of Dark Tree Tower, must this thing be?" And even as I said it, I knew that there would be no reply, not even for me, save for what followed. The thunders rolled, soft and long like a distant drumbeat. The lights out over the water grew brighter. We stood as at the ends of a dueling field in hell, waves of light washing about us, clotted with mist, dotted with ash, and Flopsis hid her face, edging the clouds with blood. It takes the powers a time to move after they've been built to the proper point. I felt them pass through me from the nearest power pole, then move away in great waves. I stood, unable to move a muscle or to close my eyes against the stare of the other. In the twisted light through which I saw, he occasionally flickered, and I glimpsed the outline of the one I had come to know as Belian. I was diminishing and expanding simultaneously, and long moments passed before I realized that it was I, Sandow, who was becoming more and more inert, passive, smaller. Yet at the same time I felt the lightnings take root in my fingertips, their swaying tops high above me in the sky, waiting to be turned and prodded and drawn crashing to the ground. I, Shimbo of Dark Tree, Shrugger of Thunders. The grey cone to my left was slashed down the side like an arm, and its orange blood spilled forth into Acheron, to sizzle and steam in the now glowing waters. Its fingers flexed high and ruddy in the night. Then I split the sky with my lines of chaos and sent them down below me in a deluge of light, as the cannons of heaven saluted, and the winds of the sky rose again, and the rains came. He was a shadow, a nothingness, a shadow. Then he stood there again when the light died, my enemy. The chalet was burning behind him, and something cried, "Cathy!" "Frank, come away!" cried the green man, and the dwarf tugged at my arm, but I brushed them both aside and took the first step toward my enemy. A consciousness touched my own, then Belion's, for I could feel the reflex that shrugged off the latter. Then the green one cried out and drew the dwarf away. My enemy took his first step, and the ground shuddered beneath it, slipped in places, collapsed upon itself. The winds beat at him as he took his second step, and he fell to the ground, causing fissures to open about him. I fell with my second step as the ground gave way beneath me. As we lay there, the isle gave a shaking, shrugging twist to our shoulder of rock, and it slid and settled, and smoke came up from the cracks within it. When we rose and took our third step, we stood in a nearly level place. I shattered the rocks about him as I took my fourth step, and with his he toppled rocks toward me from above. 5 was the wind, and 6 was the rain, and his were the fire and the earth. The volcanoes lit up the lower sky and fought with my lightnings for the upper. The winds lashed the waters below us, and we continued to sink toward them with each jogging of the isle. I heard their splashing within the wind, the thunder, the explosions, the constant plit-plit of the rain. At my enemy's back the partly crumbled chalet still burned. With my 12th step, the cyclones arose, and with his the entire isle began to sway and creak, the fumes coming heavier and more noxious now. Then something touched me in a way that I should not be touched, and I looked for the cause. The green man stood on a crag of rock, holding a weapon in his hands. A moment earlier it had hung at my side, not to be used for the gaining of cycles such as this. He pointed it first at me. Then his hand wavered, and, before I could strike him, jerked to his right. A line of light leaped forward, and my enemy fell. But the movement of the isle saved him, for the green man fell as it shuddered, and the weapon fell away. Then my enemy rose again, leaving his right hand on the ground beside him. He held the wrist in his left and stepped toward me. Chasms began to open about us, and it was then that I saw the girl. She had emerged from the burning building and edged around to the right of us in the direction of the trail I had descended. Then she had been frozen for a time, watching our slow advance one upon the other. Now she caught my attention as the chasm opened before her, and something cried out within my breast, for I knew that I could not reach her to save her. Then it broke, and I shuddered and ran toward her, for Shimbo was gone. "Cathy!" I screamed once as she swayed and fell forward. And from somewhere Nick leaped up to the edge and seized her outflung wrist. For a moment I thought he would be able to hold her. For a moment. It was not a matter of his lacking the necessary strength. He had plenty of that. It was a question of weight and momentum, of balance. I heard him curse as they fell. Then I raised up my head and turned upon Shandon with the death fury lighting up my backbone. I reached for my gun and recalled as in a dream what had become of it. Then the falling stones caught me and pinned me as he took another step, and I felt my right leg break beneath me as I fell. I must have blacked out for an instant, but the pain brought me back to consciousness. By then he had taken another step, which brought him very near, and the world was going to hell all around me. I looked up at the stump of his hand, at those manic, depressive eyes, at the mouth open to finally speak or laugh. And I raised my left hand, supported it with my right, and performed the necessary gesture. I screamed as my fingertip flared, and his head fell from his shoulders, bounced once, and rolled past me, those eyes still open and staring, and followed my wife and my best friend into the chasm below. What remained thudded to the ground before me, and I stared at it for a long while before the darkness sucked me down. Chapter 8. When I awoke it was dawn, and I was still being rained on. My right leg throbbed about 8 inches above the knee, which is bad, the place and the pain. The rain was only rain, though. The storm was over. The ground had stopped its shaking. When I was able to raise myself, however, I forgot my pain in a moment of shock. Most of the isle was gone, sunken into Acheron, and what remained was unrecognizable as my handiwork. I lay perhaps 20 feet above the waterline on a wide shelf of rock. The chalet was gone, and a mutilated corpse lay before me. I turned away from it and considered my own predicament. Then, as the torches of last night's dinner of blood still sputtered and blazed, befouling the morning sky, I reached out slowly and began removing the rocks that lay upon me, one by bloody one. Pain and monotonous repetition of an action numb the mind, free it to wander. Even if they had been real gods, what did it matter? What was it to me? Here I was still, at where I was born 1,000 or so years before, in the middle of the human condition, namely, rubbish and pain. If the gods were real, their only relation with us was to use us to play their games. Screw them all. That includes you too, Shimbo, I said. Don't ever come to me again. Why the hell should I look for order where there wasn't any? Or if there was, it was an order that did not include me. I washed my hands in a puddle that had formed nearby. It felt good on my burnt finger. The water was real. So were earth, air, and fire. That was all I cared to believe in. Let it go with basics. Don't get cute and sophisticated. Basics are things you can feel and buy. If I could beat the bay long enough, I could corner the market on these commodities, and no matter how many names were involved, they would find all the property registered in my name. Then let them howl and bitch. I would own the big tree, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. I rolled away the final stone and stretched out for a moment. I was free. Now I had nothing to do but find a power pull and rest until afternoon, when the Model T would come gliding in from the west. I opened my mind and felt one, pulsing somewhere to the left of me. When I felt stronger, I sat up and straightened my leg with both hands. When the throbbing subsided, I cut away the trouser leg and saw that the flesh was not broken. I bound it as best I could without a splint, which wasn't very, above and below the fracture, and turned slowly onto my stomach and hands and began crawling, just as slowly, in the direction of the pull, leaving what was left of Shandon behind me in the rain. The going was not too bad so long as it remained level, but when I had to pull myself up a 10-foot, 45-degree slope, I was too beat even to curse for several minutes afterwards. The damned thing had been slippery as well as steep. I looked back at Shandon and shook my head. It was not as if he had not known he was born to come in second. His whole life was testimony to that, poor bastard. I felt a moment's pity. He had come close to having it made. He had come into the wrong game at the wrong time and the wrong place, like my brother, and I wondered where his head and hand lay now. I crawled on. The power pole was only a few hundred yards away, but I took a longer route that looked easier. One time, as I rested, I thought I heard a soft sobbing sound, but it was gone too quickly for me to be sure. Another time, and I heard it again, louder, coming from behind me. I paused and waited till it came again. Then I headed toward it. 10 minutes, and I lay before a huge boulder. It was situated at the base of a high wall of rock, and there was lots of other rubble strewn about. The muffled weeping was somewhere near. A cave seemed indicated, and I did not want to waste my time exploring. So I called out. "Hello, what's the trouble?" Silence. "Hello?" Then, "Frank?" It was the voice of the Lady Carl. "Ho, bitch," I said. "Last night you told me to pass on to my doom. What's yours like?" "I'm trapped in a cave, Frank. There's a rock that I can't move." "It's a honey of a rock, honey. I'm looking at it from the other side." "Can you get me out of here?" "How did you get in?" "I hid in here when the trouble started. I've tried to dig my way out, but all my nails are broken and my fingers are bleeding, and I can't seem to find any way around this stone." "There doesn't seem to be a way." "What happened?" "Everybody's dead but you and me. There's only a little piece of the isle left. It's raining on it now. It was quite a fight we had." "Can you get me out of here?" "I'll be lucky to get myself out of here, the condition I'm in." "Are you in another cavern?" "No, I'm on the outside." "Then what do you mean by out of here?" "Off this damn hunk of rock and back to home free is what I mean." "Then there is help coming?" For me, I said. The Model T will be on its way down this afternoon. I've got it programmed.
The equipment aboard. Could you blast the rock or the ground beneath it?
Lady Carl, I said, I've got a busted leg, a paralyzed hand, and so many sprains, strains, abrasions, and contusions that I haven't even bothered counting them. I'll be lucky to get the thing going before I pass out and sleep for a week. I gave you a chance last night to be my friend again. Do you remember what you said to me?
Yes.
Well, now it's your turn. I moved myself back on my elbows and began to crawl away.
Frank!
I did not reply.
Frank, wait. Do not go. Please.
Why not? I cried.
Do you remember what you said to me then, last night?
Yes, and I remember your reply. All of that was last night, anyhow, when I was somebody else. You had your chance and you blew it. If I had the strength, I would scratch your name and the date on the stone. So long. It's been good to know you.
Frank!
I didn't even look back. Your changes of character continue to amaze me, Frank. So you made it too, Green. I suppose you're in some other damn cave and want to be dug out. No. In fact, I am only a few 100 feet from you in the direction in which you were heading. I am near the power pole, though it can't help me now. I will call out when I hear you approaching.
Why?
The time is near. I will go to the land of death, and there my strength shall fail. I was badly hurt last night.
What do you want me to do about it? I've got problems of my own.
I want the last right. You told me that you gave it to Dra Marling, so I know that you know the way. Also, you said that you had gluten. I don't believe in that any more. Never did. I only did it for Marling because you are a high priest. You bear the name Shimbo of Dark Tree Tower, Shrugger of Thunders. You cannot refuse me. I have renounced the name, and I do refuse you. You said once that if I helped you, you would intercede for me on Megapay. I did help you. I know that, but now that you are dying, it is too late. Then give me this thing instead. I will come to you and give you what aid and comfort I can, save for the last right. I am finished with such things after last night. Come to me, then. So I did. By the time I reached him, the rain had just about let up. Too bad. It had been doing a fair job of washing away his body fluids. He had propped himself back against a rock, and the whiteness of bone shone through flesh in 4 places that I could see. The vitality of a paean is a fantastic thing, I said. You got all that in that fall last night? He nodded then. It hurts to speak, so I must continue in this fashion. I knew you still lived, so I kept myself alive until I could reach you. I managed to get what was left of my pack off my back. Then I opened it. Here, take this. It is for pain. It works for 5 races. Yours is 1. He brushed it aside. I do not wish to dull my mentality at this point. Green, I am not going to give you the right. I will give you the gluten root, and you can take it yourself if you wish, but that's all. Even if I can give you that which you most desire in return?
What?
All of them, back again, with no memory of what has happened here.
The tapes!
Yes. Where are they? A favor for a favor, Dra Sandow.
Give them to me.
The right. I knew Kathy, a Kathy who had never met Mike Shandon, my Kathy, and Nick, the breaker of noses. You drive a hard bargain, paean. I have no choice, and please hurry. All right. I'll go through with it this one last time. Where are the tapes? After the rite has begun and may not be stopped, then I will tell you. I chuckled. Okay. I don't blame you for not trusting me. You were shielding. You must have been planning to trick me.
Probably.
I'm not really sure. I unwrapped the gluten, broke off the proper proportions. Now we will walk together, I began, and only one of us two will return to this place. After a cold grey time and a black warm one, we walked in a twilit place without wind or stars. There was only bright green grass, high hills, and a faint aurora borealis that licked at the grey-blue-black sky, following the entire circle of the broken horizon. It was as if the stars had all fallen, been powdered, were strewn upon the hilltops. We walked effortlessly, almost strolling, though with a purpose, our bodies whole once more. Green was at my left hand, among the hills of the Glitton dream. Or was it a dream? It seemed true and substantial, while our broken, tired carcasses lying on rocks in the rain now seemed a dream remembered, out of times long gone by. We had always been walking here, so, Green and I, or so it seemed, and a feeling of well-being and amity lay upon us. It was almost the same as the last time I had come to this place. Perhaps I had always really been here. We sang an old paean song for a time, then Green said, "I give you the Paibhadra I held against you, Dra. I hold it no more." "This is good, Dratharl." "I promised, too, to tell you something. It was of the tapes, yes. They lie beneath the empty green body I was privileged to wear for a time." "I see." "They are useless. I called them to me there with my mind from a vault where I had kept them. They had been damaged by the forces let loose upon the isle, and so also were the tissue cultures. Thus do I keep my word, but poorly. You gave me no choice, though. I could not come this way alone." I felt that I should be upset, and knew that for a time I could not be. "You did what you had to do," I felt myself saying. "Do not be troubled. Perhaps it is better that I cannot recall them. So much has gone by since their times. Perhaps they would have felt as I once felt, lost in a strange place. They might not have gone on as I did, to embrace it. I do not know. Let it be as it is. The thing is done." "Now I must tell you of Ruth Laris," he said. "She lies in the asylum of Fallon in Cobacho on Driscoll, where she is registered as Rita Lawrence. Her face has been altered, and her mind. You must remove her and hire doctors." "Why is she there?" "It was easier than bringing her to Illyria." "All this pain which you caused meant nothing to you, did it?" "No. Perhaps I had worked with the stuff of life too long." "And poorly. I am inclined to think it was Belion within you." I did not wish to say it because I did not want to offer excuses, but I feel this way also. This is why I tried to kill Shimbo. It was this part of me that you faced, and I wished to strike at it too. After he left me for Shandon, I felt remorse for many of the things I had done. He had to be sent away, which is why Shimbo of Darktree came. Belion could not be permitted to create more worlds of cruelty and ugliness. Shimbo will cast them like jewels into the darkness, sparkling with the colors of life. And to confront him once again. Now that he is won, there will be more such as these. "No," I said, "we can't operate without each other, and I've resigned." "You are bitter over all that has happened, and perhaps justly so, but one does not easily abandon a calling such as yours, Dra. Perhaps with the passage of time." I did not answer him, for my thoughts had turned inward again. The way that we walked was the way of death. However pleasant it seemed, this was a Glitton experience, and while ordinary people may become addicted to Glitton because of the euphoria and the brain-bending, telepaths use Glitton in special ways. Used by a single individual, it serves to heighten his powers. Used by two persons, a common dream will be dreamed. It also is always a very pleasant dream, and among Strantrians it is always the same dream, because this form of religious training conditions the subconscious to produce it by reflex. It is a tradition, and two dream it, and only one awakens. It is therefore used in the death rite, so that one need not go alone to the place I've spent over 1,000 years avoiding. Also it is used for dueling purposes, for unless agreed upon and bound by ritual, it is only the stronger who comes back. It is the nature of the drug that some sleeping parts of the two minds are set in conflict, though the conscious portions be all unaware of this. Green had been so bound, so I did not fear a last-ditch trick for the gaining of paean vengeance. Also, even if it were a dueling situation, I did not feel that I had anything to fear, considering his condition. But as we walked along, I considered that I was probably hastening his death by several hours, under guise of a pleasant, near-mystical ritual. Telepathic euthanasia. Mental murder. I was glad to be able to help a fellow creature shuffle off in such a decent way, on the condition that he wanted it. It made me think of my own passing, which I am certain will not be a pleasant one. I have heard people say that no matter how much you love living, now, this minute, and think that you would like to live forever, someday you will want to die. Someday you will pray for death. They had pain in mind when they spoke. They meant they would like to go pretty, like this, to escape. I do not expect to go pretty gentle or resigned into this good night myself, thank you. Like the man says, I intend to rage against the dying of the light, fighting and howling every damn step of the way. The disease that was responsible for my making it this far involved quite a bit of pain, you might even say agony, and for a long while before they froze me. I thought about it a lot then, and I decided I would never opt for the easy way out. I wanted to live, pain and all. There's a book and a man I respect, André Gide and his Fruits of the Earth. On his deathbed he knew he had only a few days left, and he wrote like blue blazes. He finished it in about 3 days and died. In it, he recounts every beautiful thing about the permutations of earth, air, fire, and water that surrounded him, things that he loved, and you could tell that he was saying goodbye and did not want to go, despite everything. That is how I feel about it. So, in spite of my involvement, I could not sympathize with Green's choice. I would rather have lain there, broken-boned and all, feeling the rain come down upon me and wondering at it, regretting, resenting a bit, and wanting a lot. Maybe it was this, the hunger, that allowed me to learn worldscaping in the first place, so that I could do it all myself, so that I could make more of it. Hell. We mounted a hill and paused on its summit. Even before we reached it, I knew what there would be when we looked down the far slope. Beginning between 2 massive prows of grey stone, with a green sward that started out as bright as that beneath our feet, and grew darker and darker as I swept my eyes ahead, there was the place. It was the big, dark valley, and suddenly I was staring into a blackness so black that it was nothing, nothing at all. "Another 100 steps will I go with you," I said. "Thank you, Dra." And we descended the hillside, moved toward the place. What will they say of me on Megapay when they hear that I am gone? I do not know. Tell them, if they ask you, that I was a foolish man who regretted his folly before he came to this place. I will. And that, too, I said. I will ask that your bones be taken into the mountains of the place that was your home. He bowed his head. That is all. You will watch me walk on? Yes. It is said that there is a light at the end. So it is said. I must seek it now. Walk well, Dra Gringrin Tharl. You have won your battles, and you will depart this place. Will you cast the worlds I never could? Maybe. And I stared into that blackness, saw stars, comets, meteors, anything. But suddenly there was something there. New Indiana hung in the void. It seemed 1,000,000 miles away, all its features distinct, cameo-cut, glowing. It moved slowly to the right until the rock blocked it from my view. By then, however, Cocytus had come into view. It crossed, was followed by all the others. St. Martin, Bunengrad, Dismal, M2, Honky-Tonk, Mercy, Summit, Tangia, Illyria, Rodent's Folly, Home Free, Castor, Pollux, Centralia, Dandy, and so on. For some stupid reason my eyes filled with tears at this passage. Every world I had designed and built moved by me. I had forgotten the glory. The feeling that had filled me with the creation of each of them came over me then. I had hurled something into the pit. Where there had been darkness, I had hung my worlds. They were my answer. When I finally walked that valley, they would remain after me. Whatever the bay claimed, I had made some replacements to thumb my nose at it. I had done something, and I knew how to do more. There is a light, said Green, and I did not realize that he had been clutching my arm, staring at the pageant. I clasped his shoulder, said, May you dwell with Kirwar of the Four Faces, Father of Flowers. And I did not quite catch his reply as he drew away from me, passed between the stones, walked the valley, was gone. I turned then and faced what had to be the east, and began the long walk home. Coming back. Brass gongs and pollywogs. I was stuck to a rough ceiling. No, I was lying there, face up on nothing, trying to support the world with my shoulders. It was heavy, and the rocks poked, gouged. Below me lay the bay, with its condoms, its driftwood, its ropes of seaweed, empty dories, bottles, and scum. I could hear its distant splashing, and it splashed so high that it kept striking my face. There it was, life, slopping, smelling, chilly. I had had a real wild romp through its waters, and now, as I looked down upon it, I felt myself falling once more, falling back toward its shallows. Maybe I heard bird cries. I had walked to the valley, and now I was returning. With luck, I would evade the icy fingers of the crumbling hand once more. I fell, and the world twisted about me, resolved itself into what it had been when I left it. The sky was bleak as slate and streaked with soot. It oozed moisture. The rocks dug into my back. Acheron was pocked and wrinkled. There was no warmth in the air. I sat up, shaking my head to clear it, shivered, regarded the body of the green man that lay beside me. I said the final words, completing the rite, and my voice shook as I said them. I rolled Green's body into a more comfortable-looking position and covered it with my flimsy. I picked up the tapes and their bio-cylinders which he had been concealing beneath him. He had been right. They were ruined. I placed them in my knapsack. At least Earth intelligence would be happy with this state of affairs. Then I crawled onto the power pole and waited there, raising a screen of forces to attract the tea, and watching the sky. I saw her walking away, her neat hips sheathed in white, and swaying slightly, her sandals slapping the patio. I had wanted to go after her, to explain my part in what had happened, but I knew it would do no good, so I lose face. When a fairy tale blows up and the dream dust settles and you find yourself standing there knowing that the last line will never be written, why not omit any exercises in futility? There had been giants and dwarves, toads and mushrooms, caves full of jewels, and not one, but 10 wizards. I felt the Model T before I saw it, when it locked with the power pole. 10 wizards, financial ones, the merchant barons of Algol. All of them, her uncles. I had thought that the alliance would hold, sealed as it was with a kiss. I had not been planning a double-cross, but when it came from the other side, something had to be done. It was not all my doing, either. There was a whole combine involved. I could not have stopped them if I had wanted to. I could feel the tea homing in now. I rubbed my leg above the break, heard it, and stopped. Business arrangement, to fairy tale, to vendetta. It was too late to recall the second phase of that cycle, and I had just won the final one. I should have felt great. The tea came into view, descended quickly, and hung like a world overhead as I manipulated it through the pull. I have been a coward, a god, and a son of a bitch in my time, among other things. That is one of the things about living for a very long time. You go through phases. Right now I was just tired and troubled, and had only one thing on my mind. I brought the tea down to rest on a level space, cracked the hatch, began crawling toward it. It did not matter now, not really, all these things I had thought when the fire was high. Any way you looked at it, it did not matter. I made it to the ship. I crawled inside. I fiddled with the controls and brought it to a more sensitive life. My leg hurt like hell. We drifted. Then I answered us, picked up the necessary equipment, crawled outside once more. Forgive me my trespasses, baby. I positioned myself carefully, took aim, dissolved one big rock. Frank, is that you? No, just us chickens. Lady Carl rushed out, dirty, wild-eyed. You came back for me. I never left. You're hurt. I told you about it. You said you were going away, leaving me. You've got to learn to know when I'm being serious. She kissed me then and helped me to stand on my one good leg, drawing my arm about her shoulders. Kind of like playing hopscotch, I said, as we headed for the tea. What is that? An old game. When I can walk again, maybe I'll teach it to you. Where now? Home free, where you may stay or go as you choose. I should have known you would not leave me, but when you said those things... Lords, it's a miserable day. What happened? The Isle of the Dead is sinking slowly into Acheron. It's raining on it. I looked at the blood on her hands, the dirt, then her messed hair. I did not mean everything that I said, you know. I know. I looked all around me. Some day I would fix it all up, I knew. Lords, it's a miserable day, she said. Upstairs the sun is shining. I think we can make it if you help. Lean on me. I did. End of Isle of the Dead by Roger Zelazny. Narrated by Steve Grad in the studios of the American Printing House for the Blind, Louisville, Kentucky, for the Library of Congress, March 1979. For special distribution as authorized by Act of Congress under Public Law 89-522, with the permission of the copyright holder and the publisher, Ace Books. If you experienced any difficulty with this recording, please tie a piece of string around one of the container straps or latches before returning it. Place the defective recording in the container braille side down for identification.